Welcome to Finance Secrets. You likely believe money is printed by the government, but that is actually a complete illusion. In reality, over 90% of the money you use daily is not cash, but merely digital numbers in databases. The truth is that the vast majority of money is created by private banks the very moment you sign a loan. Imagine you walk into a bank to borrow $20,000 for a new car. You sign, and the money appears. No money was taken from a vault or another customer. The bank simply typed a new number into their computer system. That is precisely when new money is born. It is created out of thin air in a matter of seconds. When we say money, most people visualize physical cash. However, cash represents only a tiny fraction of the total system. We must understand three distinct layers: physical cash, central bank reserves for banks, and the commercial bank money you use. Physical cash consists of notes and coins issued by the central bank, but this is becoming rare in modern economies. Central bank reserves exist only on the central bank's balance sheet, used exclusively for payments between different commercial banks. Commercial bank money exists as deposits in your account, accessible via debit cards, online transfers, and mobile banking apps. In many developed economies today, about 95% of money exists as bank deposits, leaving only 5% as cash. Think about it. When you buy a coffee for $5 with a card, no physical bill leaves an ATM. The bank simply adjusts two numbers on a secure ledger. Your balance goes down, and the coffee shop's balance rises. This digital ledger system is the reality of our economy. Physical cash is now just a minor, vanishing component. For decades, textbooks taught a specific model about how banks work, but that model is now considered largely outdated. They taught that banks take deposits from savers and then lend that same money out to borrowers. This is incorrect. The Bank of England officially stated in 2014 that in the modern world, loans actually create new deposits. Central banks worldwide confirmed that the textbook money multiplier model does not accurately describe how commercial banks truly operate today. We need to unlearn the old-school theory. The reality is that lending is the engine that creates new money. Let us look at the accounting again. Suppose you take out that $20,000 loan to buy the car. The bank's balance sheet changes instantly. It records your loan as an asset because you promised to pay it back. Simultaneously, the bank records a new liability. This is the $20,000 added to your checking account balance. The bank did not move existing money. It expanded its balance sheet on both sides, creating new purchasing power instantly. No cash was moved from another saver. It is simply two accounting entries made by the bank on their server. When you spend that money, you're effectively trading the bank's promise to pay, which everyone accepts as valid currency. You might ask, if it's this easy, can banks just create an infinite amount of money whenever they want? The answer is no. Banks cannot print money like a central bank. They face strict commercial and regulatory limits. First, they only lend if they believe you can pay it back. They need credit-worthy borrowers to ensure profitability. Second, the loan must be profitable. The interest you pay must exceed the bank's cost of managing that money. Third, banks must adhere to capital requirements. They must hold enough of their own equity to absorb potential losses. Regulations like Basel require banks to maintain a healthy ratio of their own capital compared to their risky assets. They also face liquidity requirements. They need enough liquid assets to handle daily withdrawals and transfers from their customers. If a bank lends too recklessly, it risks running out of liquid cash, leading to a catastrophic bank run event. So while lending creates money, banks must prioritize survival. Bad loans can deplete their capital and destroy the bank. Now, what happens when you transfer that $20,000 to a car dealer who uses a different bank? When you send money from Bank A to Bank B, Bank A does not physically drive cash to Bank B. Instead, they use the central bank reserve system. This is the back-end plumbing of the entire financial economy. Bank A reduces its reserves at the central bank, and Bank B's reserves increase. The money simply changes ownership. For you, the money moved, but for the system, the total amount of deposit money remains largely the same. Many people mistakenly think banks must have reserves before they lend, like putting gas in a car before driving. In reality, banks lend first. They create the loan and deposit, and then they find the reserves they need later. They can borrow reserves from other banks or the central bank to settle their payments at the end of the day. This is a crucial insight. Banks lend first and manage their reserve requirements later. The loan drives the process. This brings us to a shocking fact. In the United States, on March 26, 2020, the Federal Reserve reduced the reserve requirement ratio to 0%. This is a historic change in banking regulation. This means banks are no longer legally required to hold a specific percentage of cash against your savings deposits. The old story that a bank holds $10 for every $100 you deposit is technically no longer true. Does this mean banks can lend infinitely? No. Even with zero reserve requirements, other strict limits still apply. Capital requirements are the real break. Banks must hold equity to absorb losses from bad loans or market crashes.
They must calculate risks carefully. Loans for real estate or stocks carry weight that requires more capital backing. Customer credit is also a limit. Banks cannot lend if there are no qualified borrowers with good income history. Market interest rates and the cost of funds also act as a natural limit on how much they lend. Remember this punchline. Banks do not lend out existing money. They create new deposits by making new loans. This system has three massive consequences for our society, our economy, and the prices of the things you buy. First, credit acts as a pump for asset prices. New money flows mainly into things that can be collateralized. Because banks prefer secured loans, new money floods into real estate and financial markets rather than small businesses. Imagine a house auction. If everyone can borrow more money easily, they all bid higher, pushing the price up. With a bigger loan, you can bid $700,000 instead of $500,000. The house is the same. History shows that credit expansion almost always precedes a housing boom. More credit equals higher prices for the same assets. This creates a feedback loop. Higher prices make collateral look better, so banks lend even more, inflating the bubble. Eventually, the bubble gets too big. Interest rates rise and people cannot pay. The cycle reverses into a crash. Second, this system drives the boom and bust cycle. Credit is the heartbeat of the modern economy. When credit flows freely, spending increases, businesses hire, and the economy booms. Everyone feels richer and optimistic. But when banks get scared or rates rise, they stop lending. This is called a credit crunch. Suddenly, you cannot get a loan for that second home. You stop buying. The seller loses income. It triggers a domino effect. Thousands pull back at once, causing asset prices to fall and the economy to shrink. Third, and perhaps most critical, is inequality. New money enters the economy through those who can borrow it. The wealthy have assets like real estate and stocks to offer as collateral, so they get cheap loans easily. The poor, with few assets and unstable income, are often rejected or charged much higher interest rates. The super-rich often borrow against their assets to spend tax-free rather than selling them. It is a powerful advantage. The more assets you have, the cheaper your credit. This system inadvertently widens the gap between the rich and poor. So where does the central bank fit in? If commercial banks create money, what does the Fed actually do? Commercial banks create the deposits in your account. The central bank controls the environment where those loans happen. Their main tool is the policy interest rate. This sets the cost of money for the entire banking system. They also supply the reserves needed for the interbank payment system to function without seizing up. Through quantitative easing or tightening, they buy or sell bonds to influence long-term interest rates and market psychology. Think of the Fed as the thermostat. They set the temperature, but they do not control every air molecule. Commercial banks are the faucets. How much they open depends on the pressure set by the Fed and customer trust. Let's clarify everything by busting the 5 biggest myths about money that confuse almost everyone. Myth 1. Banks print cash. False. They cannot print paper money. They create digital accounting entries when they lend. Myth 2. Banks lend out existing deposits. False. Loans actually create new deposits. The causality is reversed. Myth 3. Reserve requirements are the main break. False. In the US, there's zero. Capital and risk are the limits. Myth 4. Where does money go when you repay a loan? It vanishes. Repaying debt destroys the money that was created. When you pay back the principal, the bank's asset and liability both decrease. The money effectively disappears from the system. Myth 5. Is this a scam? Not necessarily. It is a powerful tool for funding growth, but it carries risks. Without credit creation, our modern economy would grind to a halt. We need elastic money to fund major projects. However, when managed poorly or fueled by greed, it leads to devastating crises and unfair wealth distribution. To summarize, banks create money by lending. Capital requirements limit them, and repaying loans destroys that money. Understanding this system is the first step to navigating the financial world. You now know more than most people. Thank you for watching this deep dive. Subscribe to Finance Secrets for more economic truths. See you in the next video.